Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today, we will look at generating and using globally unique identifiers, GUIDs, within your applications. Today, we're going to be looking at GUIDs. So what exactly is a GUID? A GUID, or GUID, is a globally unique identifier. Basically a very large number which is used to uniquely identify every interface, every class, and every COM application or library which exists anywhere in the world. GUID is basically Windows terminology. The UUID, the Universal Unique Identifier, is used in other systems, but they are basically the same thing. Historically, there were 5 different versions of GUID or UUID. Version 1 used a date time and a MAC address from your Ethernet card to determine the value of the GUID. Version 4, which we're using in Windows, is basically a very large random number generator. So, how unique is this number? Well, if you were generating 1,000 million GUIDs every second for about 85 years, you would get about a 50% probability of a duplicate. So the chances of duplicates occurring, while not unknown, are extremely low. So let's have a look at the code. If we're going to create a GUID in our application, a GUID is basically a 16-byte binary string, and PowerBasic does provide GUID as a variable type. So all you have to do is to create your local variable as a GUID. Now, the question is, how do we set the GUID value in that variable? Well, PowerBasic has provided a very useful little inbuilt function to do just that. If we tell it to use the GUID $function with no parameters, it will generate a random GUID for you. Now, if we want to see what that value actually looks like, it's a large hexadecimal number with basically 32 digits. And we can output that GUID to our log using the GUID text $function. Again, another one inbuilt to PowerBasic. So if we run that now, it would show us on screen the 32-digit GUID. It will show the GUID in a human-readable form, wrapped around with curly braces. First we have 8 digits, then a hyphen, which is optional, or a space, then 3 sets of 4 digits, and then a final 12-digit number. This, in its entirety, makes up the GUID. So if we run that again and created a new GUID variable, what would we get? So now we've created a second GUID variable, and we're calling the GUID $function to set its value, and we're outputting it to the log. So despite the fact that both GUIDs were generated almost at the same time, their GUID numbers are significantly different. So what do we actually need or use these GUIDs for? Well, when you're creating objects, for example classes, inside your own applications, you don't really need to specify a GUID, as PowerBasic will create these for you in the background. However, if you plan on creating objects in the Windows compiler for external use through a COM service, you need to generate an explicit GUID in order to identify them. But even though we're not using COM objects, could we make use of the GUID? Another use to which GUIDs are actually put is to uniquely identify information within a database. Say, for example, you're creating a database and you want to make sure that each item in the database is uniquely identified. Now, different database systems have methods of actually doing that, for example, setting identities. But the GUID is something you could provide from inside your own application. Every time you insert a new record into the database, you could generate, as we have done here, a new GUID number and put that in. Fairly safe in the knowledge that this value is going to be unique. Now, how can you actually set your own explicit GUID number? How would you set these? What we've done already is we've used the GUID dollar to generate a random number. We can do that quite happily in code using a different mechanism. Now, if we want to set that, you'll find that in the edit menu of both the console compiler and the Windows compiler, there is an option marked Insert GUID. And it will actually set up and generate a GUID for you. You can then cut and paste this and use this anywhere else in your application as a generated GUID. And you can generate as many of these as you need. Now, as you will see, the information that goes into making up a GUID is basically numbers and a few letters. This is hexadecimal, base 16, which has the numbers between 0 and 9, and the letters between A and F. Base 16 allows you to store some very large numbers indeed. If we have a look at the Windows help for the console compiler and the Windows compiler, you'll find there is information in here on the different functions you can actually do with GUIDs. The GUID text function, which we've already used, takes the 16-byte 120-bit value and turns it into something that's more human readable. Should we make an error in actually setting up one of our GUIDs, for example, truncating it, then what we'll find in this case, if we actually output GUID number 4, if we run that now, we would see that the number 4 GUID would come out as null, basically all zeros. That would tell you that you had not set the GUID up correctly. And now it appears correctly. You can see from the help file that the GUIDs are heavily embedded into the object side of PowerBasic. But that's a subject for a later video. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.